In principle, then, the idea of universal human rights and human rights in general seems to be utterly wrong. But also the practice of it, and this is where we come to your minorities point, the practice of it has turned out to be absolutely deadly because of the role of judges in interpreting it. The man who seems to me to be more than anybody else responsible, not for the quangocracy side of taking power away from Parliament, but from the judicial side of taking power away from Parliament, is a man who enjoys an immense reputation in the legal world, now dead quite many years, a man called Tom Bingham, who was the last senior law lord before very much Bingham-esque creation of the Supreme Court was set up, again by Tony Blair. And Bingham writes a book on the so-called rule of law, in which he announces this very, very high place that human rights law and international law plays in law. And he never quite, in the published stuff in Britain, says what he really thinks. He did in Australia. And he gave a lecture in Australia in which he sets out fully and in unvarnished terms what the actual effect of human rights law is. And it goes like this. Human rights law is, by definition, anti-democratic insofar as it is counter-majoritarian. And it is biased, he says it absolutely explicitly, to minorities, to protect them against the majority. And he then lists the minorities: the mentally sick, the gypsy, the asylum seeker, the criminal. Now, if you look at the series of scandals we have had in Britain with the misapplication of human rights law to protect from being deported criminals, rapists, whatever, on the most spectacularly trivial ground, there it is. If you look at the cases where our judicial system and our system of protection of the citizen has collapsed absolutely, the case of the Southport murderer, Ruda Cabana, Kalokane, the man, I've now forgotten where, who just murdered people in the streets. These were people who were evidently severely mentally sick. In any sane society, they would have been in protective custody from the age of about 13. But oh no, they have human rights. Since he's been imprisoned, what has Ruda Cabana done? He has thrown boiling water at his prison guards because, of course, he's got a human right to have a cup of hot tea. This is demented. This is simply demented. But again, it's the problem when you give judges the ability to determine what is really the public interest without the overarching framework of political judgment. No judge should have the right to say, I will simply set aside considerations of public safety on the grounds of the... We're not talking now about whether somebody is guilty or innocent. That is a matter for the judicial process. But what we're talking about is saying whether ordinary legal process should or should not be set aside on grounds of some abstract right, and we ignore the whole question of the Latin phrase, salus populi suprema lex, that the safety of the people, it should be the supreme consideration. We've thrown all this aside.